Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Picture this. It's 2 a.m. You're wandering through pitch-black restaurant kitchens like some kind of depressed ninja, armed with nothing but a spray bottle of cockroach poison and an overwhelming sense that your life has become a complete joke. This is not where you thought you'd end up. This is not the hero's journey anyone writes songs about. You're pushing 300 pounds. Every morning starts the same way. A giant chocolate milkshake and a box of mini donuts. Because, hey, if you're going to give up on life, might as well go all in, right? You catch your reflection in a grease-stained window and barely recognize the stranger staring back. That person has quit. That person is drowning. That person has accepted defeat. This was David Goggins. And honestly, it gets worse before it gets better. One morning, after yet another shift battling rats and roaches in the dark, he drags himself home and collapses on the couch. He flips on the TV, probably hoping for some mindless distraction. Instead, what appears on screen is like a slap across the face from the universe itself. A documentary about Navy SEAL training. Men voluntarily subjecting themselves to absolute hell, freezing ocean water, logs that weigh more than most people, and suffering that would make most of us cry for our mothers. These guys are everything he's not: strong, disciplined, living with purpose. And then it happens. That tiny, terrifying, absolutely ridiculous thought creeps into his brain. What if? What if I could do that? I mean, come on. The guy can barely walk upstairs without wheezing, and he's thinking about becoming a Navy SEAL? It's laughable. It's delusional. It's kind of beautiful. Welcome, friends. Today we're diving into Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and I'm warning you right now, this book doesn't pull punches. Goggins is the only person to complete SEAL training, Army Ranger School, and Air Force Tactical Air Controller training. He's crushed over 60 ultramarathons. He once did 4,030 pull-ups in a single day. The man is basically a real-life superhero. But here's the kicker. He wasn't born that way, not even close. This is the story of a guy who had every excuse in the world to fail, and instead decided to become a living, breathing middle finger to limitations. By the time we're done here, you're going to realize something uncomfortable. You're probably operating at about 40% of what you're actually capable of. And Goggins is going to show you how to access that other 60%. Fair warning, it's not going to be comfortable, but man, is it going to be worth it. So buckle up. We're going back to the beginning, to a place called Paradise Road, where young David learned that paradise was just a cruel joke. Book summary. Some childhoods are so dark they seem designed by a sadistic screenwriter who thinks too much doesn't exist. David Goggins's early life reads like that. On the surface, picture perfect. Gorgeous 4-bedroom house in upscale New York. Luxury cars lining the driveway. Rolls-Royce, Mercedes, Corvette, the whole 9 yards. But, as Goggins puts it, glossy surfaces reflect way more than they reveal. And behind the glossy surface of the Goggins family was pure horror. His father, Toughness, was what you'd call a successful businessman if you ignore the whole abusive monster thing. He owned Skateland, a popular roller rink. But he didn't run a business. He ran a prison camp, and his family were the inmates. Starting at age 6, not 16, 6, David worked at that rink every single night until past midnight. No pay, no thank you. Just endless hours organizing skates, working the counter, and after closing time, scrubbing toilets and scraping gum off the floor like the world's saddest janitor. They'd finally crawl home around 6 a.m., just in time for little David to stumble into first grade. Imagine trying to learn to read when you haven't slept. Yeah, it didn't go great. But the sleep deprivation was just the warm-up act. The main event was the violence. Toughness beat David's mother regularly and viciously. One night, after she dared to shoot him a dirty look at the bar. Seriously, just a look. He waited until they got home. Then he took off his thick leather belt and announced, with theatrical cruelty, "This belt came all the way from Texas, just to whip you." What followed was brutal. He dragged her down the stairs by her hair, beating her while young David watched, helpless and terrified. Finally, the little boy couldn't take it anymore. He jumped on his father's back, trying to fight him off. Know what he got for his bravery? The same belt across his small body until welts covered his skin. His mother hit the panic button. Police came. And then, nothing. Toughness charmed them, painting himself as the reasonable one. They laughed with him and left without even talking to his bruised, bleeding mother. That's when David learned a soul-crushing truth. Nobody's coming to save you. You're on your own, kid. Oh, and did I mention he was one of the only black kids in his school? Because of course he was. The racism was relentless. He heard the N-word so often it became background noise. Life had dealt him what he calls a bad hand. Actually, scratch that. Life had dealt him the worst hand. Eventually, his mother found the courage to run. One day, armed with nothing but a fresh credit card and garbage bags full of clothes, Jackie grabbed her sons and fled. Toughness's parting words, "You have nothing, and you are nothing without me. You'll be a prostitute inside a year." What a gem of a human being. They ended up in a tiny Indiana town called Brazil, in a 600-square-foot apartment in public housing that cost $7 a month. They were free from the monster, but now they were broke. Welfare, food stamps, the whole poverty experience. For a while, things got less horrible. David stopped wetting the bed, which is the saddest measure of improvement imaginable. He repeated second grade, but under the tough love of Sister Catherine, he actually started learning to read. Progress. But trauma doesn't just disappear because you change zip codes. In third grade, a new teacher wanted to label him special. You know, in the way that means, let's put him in a different room and forget about him. The threat triggered something in David. Overnight, he developed a brutal stutter. His hair started falling out in patches. White splotches appeared on his dark skin. Doctors call this toxic stress. David calls it what happens when life tries to break you. Cornered and ashamed, he developed a survival strategy: cheating. He became an absolute master at copying homework and stealing glances at test answers. His grades improved. Teachers backed off. Problem solved, right? Wrong. So wrong. He was gaming himself, passing through school without learning anything, reinforcing the belief that he was dumb and destined for nothing. Then, just when life showed a glimmer of hope, his mother fell in love with a wonderful man named Wilmoth, the first healthy father figure David had ever known. The universe said, "Nope." The day after Christmas, Wilmoth was murdered, shot 5 times in his own garage. Any hope for a better future? Blown to pieces. David was convinced that the world was just a tragedy machine designed to destroy him. His teenage years were a disaster movie. He bounced between Indiana and Indianapolis, trying to find somewhere he belonged. He adopted this fake tough guy persona, sagging pants, loud music, all attitude. But it was just armor for a deeply insecure kid. He was living a lie, and somewhere deep down he knew it. He kept cheating his way through school. Then came the military entrance exam, the ASVAB. For the first time in years, he couldn't cheat. He got a 20 out of 99. 20. That's maybe rocks have a higher IQ territory. Then the school sent a letter, D average, tons of absences, basically, you're not graduating high school, in official letterhead form. That night, something snapped. He went to the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and finally saw himself clearly, a low-budget fake with no purpose and no future. And for the first time in his life, he held himself accountable. He started talking to that mirror reflection, but this wasn't some gentle self-love session. This was brutal. You are one dumb motherfucker, he told himself. You read like a third grader. You're a fucking joke. You've never tried hard at anything in your life. No more taking the easy way out. Time to grow the fuck up. Then he grabbed a razor and shaved his head clean. New life, new man, new rules. This was the birth of the accountability mirror, and it became his daily ritual. He wrote goals on Post-it notes and stuck them to that mirror. Make your bed like you're in the military. Pull up your pants. Study for the ASVAB. This wasn't about affirmations or positive thinking. This was about raw truth. If you're fat, admit it. Tell yourself, I'm fucking fat, so you can start fixing it. If you've been a coward, call yourself out so you can find courage. He became obsessed with self-improvement. That kitchen table became his study hall, his temple, his war room. He discovered that his brain required absolutely brutal repetition to learn anything. He'd read a page, write it down word for word, then do it again. And again. Sometimes 3 times just for one page. It was grueling, inefficient, exhausting. And it worked. 6 months later, he'd gone from 4th grade reading level to high school senior. He attacked fitness the same way. Up at 5 a.m. to lift weights. Running miles in the dark, he started craving discomfort. Raining? Perfect running weather. Snowing? Even better. He was building calluses on his mind. 3rd attempt at the ASVAB? He passed. Barely, but he passed. He joined the Air Force with dreams of becoming pararescue, the elite search and rescue specialists. Made it through boot camp, started the training pipeline, and was crushing almost everything. Almost. Water training. They had water confidence training, which is a nice way of saying we're going to try to drown you repeatedly. He had a deep fear of water, and that fear consumed him. When a minor medical issue popped up, sickle cell trait, he used it as an escape hatch. He quit. Technically, medically, on paper, he didn't quit. In his heart, he absolutely quit, and that failure aided him like acid. He served 4 years in the Air Force, but carried that shame with him every single day. He buried it under muscle and then fat. He got into powerlifting and ballooned up. After leaving the military, he kept eating, kept bulking, until he hit nearly 300 pounds. Dead-end job as a security guard. Then spraying for cockroaches at Ecolab. Married to a woman whose father had literally called him a racial slur. Eating chocolate milkshakes and donuts for breakfast. Miserable. Numb. A zombie selling his time on Earth for minimum wage. And that brings us back to that couch, that documentary, that moment. Watching those SEALs suffer through training, he saw everything he wasn't. They were excellence. He was mediocrity in human form. But, for weeks, he called Navy recruiters everywhere, telling them he wanted to be a SEAL. Most said no. One recruiter in Indianapolis literally laughed when this 297-pound man walked into his office. But Goggins is many things, and one of them is stubborn. Finally, he connected with Stephen Shaljo, one of the best Navy recruiters around. Shaljo saw something, maybe potential, maybe just persistence, but he also saw the scale. Maximum weight for Goggins' height? 191 pounds. Current weight? 297 pounds. Time available, less than 3 months. He had to lose 106 pounds in under 3 months. Impossible. Medically inadvisable. Absolutely insane. So naturally, he did it. What followed was self-imposed torture. Up at 4:30 a.m. for hours on a stationary bike, then hours in the pool, then hours at the gym. His daily meal? 1 small chicken breast and vegetables. That's IT. He was constantly starving, constantly exhausted, constantly fighting his brain, screaming, "This is insane!" But the weight dropped. 25 pounds in 2 weeks. Then he could run again. The progress fueled him. He lived at the edge of breakdown but kept pushing. In less than 3 months, he lost all 106 pounds. Impossible mission completed. He got into Bud/S, 6 months of let's see what breaks you training. But it wasn't smooth sailing. He got rolled back from his first class with double pneumonia during Hell Week, got rolled back again after fracturing his kneecap. That meant he'd have to do Hell Week, 5.5 days of non-stop physical and mental torture with basically no sleep, 3 times in 1 year. Let me repeat that, because it's bonkers. 3 Hell Weeks in 1 year. During his 3rd attempt, he was running on legs riddled with stress fractures. He showed up early every morning to wrap his legs in multiple layers of socks and duct tape, just to immobilize his broken bones enough to function. The first 30 minutes of every run were pure agony. Every single step. How do you keep going when your body is literally breaking apart? Goggins invented something he calls the cookie jar. The cookie jar is simple but powerful. It's an imaginary place in your mind where you store every victory, every accomplishment, big or small. When you're suffering and want to quit, you reach into that jar and pull out a memory of overcoming. Passed the ASVAB after failing twice? That's a cookie. Lost 106 pounds? Big cookie. Survived Hell Week once? Another cookie. These memories remind you that you've been through hell before and survived. They're proof you're tougher than you think. This is crucial. We obsess over our failures, but Goggins teaches us to weaponize our successes. Use them as fuel when you have nothing left. He also discovered the 40% rule. When your mind screams, "I'm done," when you feel completely maxed out, you're actually only at 40% of your capability. That feeling of being finished is just your brain's governor, a safety mechanism trying to keep you comfortable and protected. The secret to pushing past 40%? Callus your mind. It's like weightlifting, but for your brain. First time lifting? Your hands tear and bleed. But keep going, and you build calluses. What once hurt becomes manageable. Goggins says we must do the same mentally by seeking out discomfort. Run in the rain. Take the stairs. Do things you hate every single day. Each time you push past that 40% barrier, you recalibrate your governor. You expand what you think is possible. Armed with these tools, Goggins didn't just graduate Bud/S. He became the 36th African-American Navy SEAL in history. Then he graduated Army Ranger School as enlisted honor man. He was becoming, quote, uncommon amongst uncommon. He started seeking the hardest challenges on earth, not for glory but to find his limits. This led him to ultra-endurance racing. It started as a way to raise money for fallen special operations warriors, families. To qualify for his first race, Badwater 135, a 135-mile run through Death Valley in summer, he had to run 100 miles in 24 hours. With 3 days' notice and 0 training, he did it. 101 miles in under 19 hours. But it nearly killed him. At mile 70, he was peeing blood and, let's not sugarcoat this, shitting himself in a lawn chair. His feet were destroyed, blisters upon blisters, toenails cracked and broken. His body was shutting down. But he reached into his cookie jar, applied the 40% rule, and kept going. That's when he learned the body can withstand way more than we think, but it all starts in the mind. He finished Badwater, placing 5th in his first attempt, competed in Ultraman World Championships, 3 days, 320 miles, and came in 2nd. He was rewriting the rule book on human endurance. Then life threw him another curveball, because apparently it wasn't done with him yet. At his athletic peak, his body started betraying him mysteriously. His heart rate, normally in the low 30s, which is already crazy, was suddenly spiking into the 200s during light exercise. Doctors were stumped. Finally, an echocardiogram revealed the truth. David Goggins was born with a hole in his heart, an atrial septal defect. Let that sink in. All of this, 3 hell weeks, Ranger School, Badwater, Ultraman, he did with a heart operating at about half capacity. The doctors called him a medical marvel. Goggins called it proof that genetics don't mean squat. It's all about that calloused mind. He had 2 heart surgeries. Recovery was long and brutal. His elite operator and athlete days seemed over. He could have retired, legacy secure, story complete. But Goggins doesn't do finish lines. He believes you're either getting better or getting worse. There's no maintenance mode. Unable to run, he turned his obsession to a new target, the world record for pull-ups. After 2 brutal public failures, one on live TV, where his hands were literally torn to shreds, he did what he always does. He analyzed every mistake in what he calls an after-action report, adjusted his strategy, learned from failure, and on his 3rd attempt, in a CrossFit gym in Nashville, he broke the record. 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours, 4,030. His journey proves that failure isn't the end, it's fuel. He learned more from those 2 failed attempts than he would have from succeeding on try 1. Failure gives you data. It exposes weaknesses. It humbles you. And if you're brave enough to face it, analyze it, and come back, failure becomes the most powerful tool you have. In the end, this raw, unfiltered, absolutely insane story boils down to one question that Goggins wants you to ask yourself when facing limits, doubts, and fears. What if? What if I'm capable of more? What if this pain is just the doorway to a stronger me? What if the things I'm running from are exactly what I need to face? It's a question that silences negativity and unlocks potential you didn't know existed. It's the question that changes everything. Commentary. There are books you read, and books that punch you in the face and demand you reevaluate your entire existence. Can't Hurt Me is definitely the second one. This isn't a gentle motivational hug. This is a drill sergeant screaming in your ear at 4 a.m., and honestly, that's exactly what some of us need. What absolutely floors me about Goggins' story is how it completely obliterates the talent myth. We're obsessed with naturals, the gifted athlete, the brilliant artist, the genius entrepreneur born with magic in their DNA. We love that story because it lets us off the hook. Well, they're just talented, I could never do that. Goggins' life is a middle finger to that entire mindset. He wasn't born with advantages. He was born with disadvantages. Abuse, poverty, racism, learning disabilities, obesity, fear of water, and, oh yeah, a literal hole in his heart. If there was a checklist of reasons you'll never succeed, he'd have checked every box. His story proves greatness isn't genetic, it's built. One grueling, painful, unglamorous step at a time. There's no magic pill, no life hack, no secret, except this: work. Hard, relentless, obsessive work. Being willing to suffer, get uncomfortable, and keep moving when everything in you screams stop. The calloused mind concept hits different. We spend our whole lives dodging pain and chasing comfort like it's the meaning of life. Goggins flips that completely. Pain and suffering aren't obstacles to avoid. They're tools to use. They're the friction that makes you stronger. By intentionally seeking discomfort, you build mental resilience. You raise your baseline for what you can handle, not just in workouts but in life. When work gets tough, relationships get messy, or life throws curveballs, a calloused mind doesn't panic. It doesn't look for escape hatches. It assesses, accepts, and gets to work. So how do you actually use this stuff? You don't need to run 100 miles or do 4,000 pull-ups. The principles scale to any life. First, create your accountability mirror. Tonight, before bed, stand in front of your mirror and have a brutally honest conversation with yourself. What are you avoiding? Where are you taking shortcuts? Write one goal on a post-it note. Stick it on that mirror. Make it the first thing you see every morning and the last thing at night. Second, build your cookie jar. Grab a journal and write down every obstacle you've overcome. Passed a tough exam. Finished a project that seemed impossible. Stood up for yourself when it was scary. Next time you feel like quitting, mentally reach for one of those cookies. Remember that victory feeling and use it as rocket fuel. Third, embrace the 40% rule. Next time you're working out and want to stop, push just a little further, one more representative, one more minute. You're not trying to injure yourself. You're teaching your mind that you're in control, not your temporary discomfort. Goggins' story is extreme, no question. But the message? Universal. The limits we put on ourselves are mostly imaginary. We're all capable of so much more than we think. We just have to be willing to battle the one person who can truly stop us, ourselves. That was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. We've hit the big ideas, but let's be real. A summary is just the trailer. The real power is in Goggins' unfiltered voice, in the raw, visceral details of his journey. Reading it is an experience that genuinely shakes you and forces you to question what's actually possible. This summary helps you decide if this book deserves your time. If anything sparked something in you today, if you felt even a flicker of that fire, grab a copy. Links in the description. Also, if this journey resonated, smash that like button and subscribe. It tells us we're on track, and make sure you catch our next deep dive into another life-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf. Let's keep challenging ourselves and growing together.